My parents demanded I support my brother's recovery, so I supported him all the way to rock bottom. I came home from my daughter's dance recital to find my bedroom safe hanging open. Grandma's entire jewelry collection, her wedding pearls, Grandpa's war ring, everything worth about $18,000 was gone. I sighed and pinched the bridge of my nose. You see, earlier that morning, my brother Trent had been at the house for Sunday breakfast, and Trent can best be described as a 30-year-old man-baby. No job, spent all day convincing my parents to send him more money. Total loser. So now, standing in my bedroom, staring at the empty safe, I knew exactly who was behind it. When I confronted Trent at his apartment an hour later, he was playing Fortnite, wearing Grandpa's ring like it was some kind of trophy. Insurance will cover it. He laughed when I demanded everything back. Besides, what's some old jewelry compared to your baby brother's life? I tried explaining that Grandma had specifically wanted the pearls passed down to the oldest granddaughter, but he just shrugged and said I could buy new ones with all my fancy nursing money. The smell of jargons in his apartment made me dizzy, so I left and drove to my parents' house. But as soon as the front door swung open, my dad punched a hole in the drywall. Trent already told us what happened. How dare you go to his apartment and threaten him during recovery? My mother was worse. Called me heartless for kicking Trent while he was down. They demanded I apologize. That's when it hit me. The best revenge is gift wrapped with a smile. So I left and got to work. I spent the next 2 weeks visiting every pawn shop in a 50-mile radius. Some of my grandma's pieces were already sold, but I tracked down the buyers through social media, knocked on doors, offered triple what they paid. I spent $18,000 of my retirement fund on getting everything back because my plan was going to be worth every penny. Our annual family dinner was 2 weeks later. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all 30 relatives packed into my parents' house. I waited until everyone was seated before tapping my fork against the champagne glass. Trent, I announced, making sure every relative could hear, since you accidentally stole all of Grandma's jewelry out of my safe and pawned them off, I decided to get them all back just for you. Here's everything. Professionally cleaned and restored. The silence was deafening. Trent's face went from white to deep red, but he couldn't explode. Not with Aunt Linda asking in her sharp voice why I had to recover family heirlooms from pawnshops. Not with Uncle Rob muttering about addiction and theft. Life was sweet, but on the way home, I realized something. I probably shouldn't let my pettiness get in the way of being a good sister. So the next morning, led by guilt, I drove him to the best rehab facility in the state and dropped $30,000 for a 90-day program. The kind with equine therapy and private rooms and actual medical supervision. And I visited every single Sunday driving 3 hours each way. Unfortunately, the counselors couldn't stop praising me because the more praise I got, the more Trent hated me. But still, I thought that rehab would help him. And when he got out after 90 days, he was different, but not in the good way. He'd drive by my house at odd hours. I'd catch glimpses of his car. He somehow knew my schedule when I'd be at work, when I picked up my daughter. But I wasn't worried because he had never hurt my daughter before, and I didn't think he ever would. Fast forward 3 weeks later when it was finally time for Emma's school spring musical. I was helping her undo her seatbelt when suddenly the world exploded in spotlights and sirens. 20 officers, GNs drawn. Hands where we can see them. Step away from the vehicle. Emma started screaming. They forced me to the ground on the asphalt while my 6-year-old watched me, her mother that she thought could move the ends of the earth, face down next to the car. The deer dogs went straight to my trunk, found a hidden compartment I didn't even know existed, and they pulled out 3 little baggies. As I lay there with gravel pressing into my cheek, my daughter shrieked, "Mommy, what's happening to Mommy?" And that's when I saw him, Trent, sitting in his car at the far edge of the parking lot, just watching, making sure his anonymous tip had paid off exactly as planned. My hands were yanked behind my back, cold metal biting into my wrists as the cuffs clicked shut. The officer's knee pressed harder into my spine, grinding me further into the asphalt. Emma's screams turned hysterical. The words from Tomorrow, her solo from the musical, pouring out between sobs. Her red sequined Annie costume caught every police light, turning my baby into a glittering beacon of terror. Jake threw up. I heard him retching in the back seat, choking on his own panic. My 9-year-old son who'd been so excited to watch his sister perform was now watching his mother face down on pavement surrounded by armed officers. They hauled me to my feet. Through the chaos, I locked eyes with Trent one more time. He lifted his phone, recording everything. Then he started his car and drove away. Mission accomplished. The ride to the station passed in a blur of Emma's muffled sobs and Jake's questions that no one would answer. Child services met us there. 2 women with clipboards who led my children away while I was processed. Emma reached for me, still singing broken fragments of Tomorrow like a prayer. At booking, I recognized the desk sergeant immediately. Tom Morrison. He'd been 2 years ahead of Trenton High School, played football together. His face fell when he saw me. "Sarah," he kept his voice low, professional, but I caught the disappointment. "Your uncle's going to be heartbroken." My uncle, the sheriff, who'd been so proud when I became a nurse, who'd bragged about having one good apple in the family tree. Tom processed my fingerprints with visible reluctance, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. They gave me one phone call. My parents' landline rang 4 times before clicking to their ancient answering machine. Dad's gruff voice asking callers to leave a message. I gripped the receiver with trembling fingers. "Mom. Dad, it's Sarah. I've been arrested." "It's not true." "None of it's true. Trent planted substances in my car. Please. I need you to get the kids from child services. Please answer. Please." The machine cut me off mid-plea. They threw me in holding with 2 hammered drivers and a woman who'd struck her boyfriend with a frying pan. When they heard my charges, possession with intent to distribute in a school zone, the atmosphere shifted. The hammered drivers scooted away. The domestic abuser sneered. Substance dealer picking up kids at school. Real classy. I sat on the metal bench, knees drawn to my chest, replaying every moment. The hidden compartment. How long had it been there? When had Trent installed it? During one of his drive-bys? While I was at work? 2 hours later, Emma's principal arrived at the station, not to help. Mrs. Henderson's face was stone as she spoke with the officers, gesturing sharply. I caught fragments through the reinforced glass. Banned from school property. Pending investigation. Safety of other children. Even if I made bail, I couldn't pick up my own children from school. Couldn't attend parent-teacher conferences. Couldn't watch Emma in another play. My court-appointed lawyer showed up at midnight, fresh out of law school, his suit too big, his hands shaking worse than mine as he fumbled with his briefcase. He spread out papers, pointing to numbers that made my stomach drop. The amount they found with the hidden compartment that puts you in trafficking weight, mandatory minimums. We're talking decades, not years. His voice cracked on decades. This kid who should be worried about student loans was explaining how I might not see freedom until Emma was older than I am now. But I didn't know about the compartment. I didn't put anything there. He adjusted his glasses. A nervous tick. "Doesn't matter. It's your car. Possession is possession. And in a school zone, the judge won't have discretion even if he wanted to." Arraignment came at 3 a.m. They marched me into a courtroom that smelled like old coffee and despair. The gallery was mostly empty except for the back row. Trent sat there, phone out, filming again, making sure he captured every moment of my destruction. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, read the charges. Possession with intent to distribute. School zone enhancement, child endangerment, each word another nail in my coffin. When she got to bail, my lawyer's arguments fell flat. Given the defendant's access to minor children and the location of the arrest, I'm denying bail. Defendant poses a risk to the community, particularly minor children. The gavel came down like thunder. Back at county jail, the medical intake nurse went through her checklist with practiced boredom. Emergency contacts, medical conditions, current medications. When she asked for someone to notify about my children, I had no choice. Trent Williams. He's their uncle. She looked up, recognizing the irony in my voice. The same Trent Williams listed as the reporting party? I nodded. She made a note, her expression softening slightly. She'd seen this before. Family using the system as a weapon. But seeing it didn't mean she could do anything about it. They assigned me to a cell with a woman named Diane, 50-something weathered face, doing 6 months for cooking meth. She took one look at me, still in my dress clothes from Emma's recital, and shook her head. "First time?" I nodded. "What they get you for?" I explained about the hidden compartment, the substances I'd never seen before. My brother who'd been stalking me. Diane listened, then laughed bitterly. "Hidden compartment you didn't know about? Classic plant job. Your brother's either smart or had help. Probably both." She explained how it worked. Install the compartment when the target's not around. Load it up. Make an anonymous tip about suspicious activity. Cops find the substances, and suddenly you're looking at decades while the real criminal plays victim. Seen it a dozen times. Ex-husbands, business partners, family members. System don't care who put it there. They care who owns the car. My first video visitation came the next morning, 15 minutes to see my children through a screen. But when the connection loaded, it wasn't just Emma and Jake. My parents sat behind them and behind my parents, Trent, hovering, watching, making sure I saw him. Mom spoke first. "Sarah, honey, maybe this is for the best. Maybe jail will help you get clean. I'm not on substances, Mom. I've never denial as part of addiction." She cut me off. "The counselors at Trent's rehab warned us about this." Trent leaned forward, just enough for me to see his mouth. He mouthed 2 words. "Told you." Emma hadn't spoken since the arrest, my mother explained. Only saying tomorrow on repeat. Jake had started wetting the bed again. They were staying with my parents temporarily while things got sorted out. The call ended with Emma reaching for the screen, tears streaming down her face, still in her Annie costume because she refused to take it off. That afternoon, a guard delivered notice from my hospital. Suspended without pay, effective immediately. The morals clause in my contract was clear. Any arrest for substance-related charges meant automatic suspension pending investigation. No paycheck. No health insurance. No way to pay for a real lawyer. I did the math on the cell wall with a pencil stub. Mortgage payment due in 2 weeks. Car payment after that. Utilities, Emma's dance classes, Jake's baseball league, everything I'd built crumbling while I sat in an orange jumpsuit. The nursing board would be notified within 72 hours. Standard procedure for substance arrests. My license, 10 years of school, clinicals, continuing education would be under review. Even if I hit the charges, the review process could take years. Years I'd spend unable to work in my profession. 3 days later, Child Protective Services arrived. A tired-looking woman with kind eyes and bad news. Trent and my parents had filed for emergency custody. Given your current incarceration and the nature of the charges, the court is inclined to grant temporary custody to family members. Your brother has been especially proactive in ensuring the children's stability. Proactive. That's what they called it when someone destroyed your life then volunteered to pick up the pieces. He's an addict, I told her. Check his record. Multiple arrests. Failed rehabs. She flipped through her papers. Mr. Williams provided documentation of successful completion of a 90-day program. He's been clean for 4 months. Regular attendance at NA meetings. Employed full-time. Employed? Since when? Additionally, your parents are providing support. 2-parent households, stable income, clean background checks. I'm sorry, but from the court's perspective, she didn't need to finish. From the court's perspective, I was a substance dealer who'd endangered children. Trent was a recovering addict making positive changes. The truth was irrelevant. My best friend Melissa visited that weekend. She'd been crying. I could see it in her puffy eyes. The smeared mascara she'd tried to fix in the parking lot. David says I can't. He doesn't want me associating with. She couldn't finish but slipped me a folded paper. Trent's been coming around asking questions about your computer passwords, bank accounts. I changed everything I could think of. The note was a list of every account she'd helped me secure. Email, banking, social media, even my Netflix password. At the bottom, she'd written, "He's using your kids to get people to talk. Says he needs access to help them. Don't trust anyone." The next blow came from the jail's law library computer during my allotted hour of access. My arrest had made the local news. Local nurse arrested in school substance bust. The article included my mugshot, hollow eyes, tangled hair, the last remnants of my recital makeup smeared across my face. The comments section was brutal. Parents from Emma's school demanding I stay away from their children. People I'd treated at the hospital expressing shock and disappointment. And there, with his real name and profile picture, Trent, praying for my sister's recovery and healing. Addiction is a disease. Our family won't give up on her. 47 likes. Dozens of supportive replies. He'd turned my destruction into his redemption story. My public defender quit the next week, got appointed to some federal case with actual prestige. His replacement hadn't even read my file. She called me Sandra for the entire meeting, shuffling through papers with confused frustration. So you're saying someone planted these substances? Yes. My brother. He installed a hidden compartment. Do you have proof? Receipts? Video footage? Witnesses? I had nothing. Just the word of a suspected substance dealer against a recovering addict who'd heroically stepped up to care for traumatized children. The CBS video interview with my kids went exactly as Trent planned. Emma, coached and confused, told the investigator that mommy hides things in the car. When asked what kind of things, she shut down, returning to her tomorrow refrain, but the damage was done. Jake tried to help, told them about Uncle Trent visiting at night, coming by when I wasn't home. But the investigator focused on Emma's words, documenting them carefully while dismissing Jake's as inconsistent with the timeline. I started trading commissary for legal advice from a woman doing 5 years for fraud. She'd been a paralegal before her arrest, knew the system inside and out. Her assessment was grim. Family court moves fast. Faster than criminal court. Your brother could have permanent custody before your trial even starts. And once they have custody for 6 months, it becomes the status quo. Judges don't like disrupting status quo. I lay awake that night calculating time. How long before temporary became permanent? How long before my children forgot what it felt like to have me tuck them in? How long before Trent's version of events became their truth? The answer came 2 weeks later when my parents visited. They brought papers, legal documents Trent had prepared with his new girlfriend Amy, who was studying to be a paralegal. Just temporary guardianship, my mother assured me. For the children's stability. You understand? Behind her, my father stood silent, jaw clenched. He'd aged 10 years and 2 weeks. When I refused to sign, his fist clenched like he wanted to punch another wall. Be reasonable, Sarah. The kids need stability. They need normal, not a mother in jail. I didn't do this, Dad. You know me. You know I would never. I thought I knew you, he interrupted. But the daughter I raised wouldn't have substances in her car, wouldn't get arrested at her child's school, wouldn't put her babies through this trauma. They left the papers. Temporary guardianship. Just until things were resolved. But I knew better. Nothing temporary stays temporary when you're fighting the system from inside a cell. That night, the local Facebook mom group started sharing my mugshot. Warning. Substance dealer nurse. Keep our schools safe. Protect our children. Each share another nail in my reputation's coffin. Melissa texted me screenshots until her husband found out and made her block me. But it was Trent's comment that broke me. As a recovering addict, I know how hard it is to admit you need help. I'm praying my sister finds the strength to choose recovery. Her children deserve a healthy mother. Break the cycle. Recovery is possible. 134 likes, 62 shares. My destruction had become his platform. The next morning brought another blow. Notice from my mortgage company. The automatic payment had failed. My accounts were frozen as part of the asset investigation. Missed payment meant acceleration clause activation. 30 days to pay in full or face foreclosure. Trent posted Instagram stories from my house that afternoon, maintaining Sissy's place for when she gets better. Family, hope. He was in my kitchen, using my dishes, sitting on my couch, moving his things in box by box while I sat in a cage. During transport to family court, I finally understood the full scope of my situation. The deputies gossiping in the front seat didn't realize I could hear them. Sheriff's taking it hard. That's his niece. The good one. Right? The nurse? Yeah. Always said she was the only one who made something of herself. Now this. Trent seems to be doing better though. Saw him at the grocery store with those kids. Real sweet with them. My uncle, the sheriff, who could have helped, could have investigated, could have at least listened. But family was family. And I was now the family embarrassment. The cautionary tale. The good one gone bad. In family court, I appeared via video link. Orange jumpsuit, shackled to the table, hair unwashed, no makeup, looking every inch the substance dealer they believed I was. Trent sat in the gallery in a clean button-down shirt, hands folded, the picture of responsible recovery. His lawyer, not his girlfriend but a real attorney he'd somehow afforded, painted a beautiful picture. Recovering addict, 4 months clean, working full-time, providing stable home for traumatized children. My parents testified on his behalf. Even Emma's principal submitted a letter supporting his custody petition. The judge's decision was swift. Temporary custody to Trent and my parents. Supervised visitation for me if and when I was released. Best interests of the children. I watched my brother's face as the judge spoke. No smirk. No gloating. Just calm satisfaction. He'd won. Not through violence or threats, but through patience and planning. He'd used my own goodness against me. My insistence on helping him recover. My trust that he'd never hurt my children. My belief that family meant something. As they led me back to my cell, I realized the truth. Trent hadn't just stolen my grandmother's jewelry, he'd stolen my entire life. And he'd done it with such precision that everyone thanked him for it. The system had worked exactly as he'd known it would. Good sister with no record versus recovering addict making positive changes? The narrative wrote itself. All he'd had to do was flip our positions, and suddenly, I was the villain in my own story. That night, Diane found me sobbing on my bunk. She didn't offer comfort. Jail doesn't work that way, but she did offer truth. First rule of frame jobs, the best ones make the victim look guilty of exactly what they'd never do. Nurse with no substance history, plant substances, good mother, make her look dangerous to kids. Strong woman, put her in a cage where strength don't matter. She was right. Every strength I'd had, Trent had turned into a weapon against me. My clean record made the arrest more shocking. My good reputation made the fall more dramatic. My love for my children made the separation more devastating. Question is, Diane continued, what you gonna do about it? You can sit here crying or you can start fighting. But either way, them kids are growing up without you. Clock's ticking. I wiped my face on the rough pillowcase. She was right. The clock was ticking. Every day I spent in here was another day Trent solidified his position. Another day my children adapted to life without me. Another day my truth became less believable. I thought about Emma, refusing to take off her Annie costume, singing about tomorrow, about Jake, wetting the bed, insisting Uncle Trent visited at night, about my parents, choosing to believe the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth. Most of all, I thought about Trent, sitting in my house, raising my children, playing the hero in the story where I was the villain. He'd won this round so completely that people applauded him for it. But Diane was right about something else too. The clock was ticking for him as well, because addicts don't stay clean when they get everything they want. They stay clean when they're fighting for something, and Trent had just won everything he'd been fighting for. The counselors at rehab had warned about this, though not in the way my mother thought. They'd talked about environmental triggers, about the danger of too much success, too fast, about the thin line between recovery and relapse. I knew my brother, knew him better than anyone. He wasn't using when he planted those substances. He'd been too careful, too precise. But now, with my house, my children, my parents' complete trust, with no one watching, no one suspecting, no one holding him accountable, the clock was ticking for both of us. The only question was which timer would run out first, his sobriety or my freedom. Trent started his recovery blog the following Monday. Breaking the Cycle went live with a photo of him hugging Emma and Jake on my parents' front porch. The first post detailed his journey from addiction to becoming a guardian angel for his nibblings, a word that made me physically ill. Within hours, sympathetic comments poured in. Mothers praised his courage. Recovery groups shared his story. Someone started a GoFundMe for his legal expenses and protecting the children. Diane watched me refresh the page obsessively during computer time. She finally grabbed my wrist, forcing me to look at her weathered face. Her cousin worked at the impound lot where they'd towed my car. For $200 in commissary, he could check the hidden compartment for fingerprints, tool marks, anything the police might have missed. I agreed immediately, trading my phone privileges for ramen noodles and coffee packets. The video visitation that week destroyed what remained of my composure. Trent positioned himself just outside the camera's view, but I could see his hand on Emma's shoulder. My daughter's eyes darted between the screen and something off camera as she asked why I'd brought bad medicine to her play. The words came out stilted, rehearsed. Jake sat silent, arms crossed, refusing to look at the screen at all. When the 15 minutes ended, Emma pressed her small hand against the monitor, and I saw Trent's fingers tighten on her shoulder. My new reality hit during a meeting with my public defender. She discovered that all my jail calls were recorded. Standard procedure. But Trent's girlfriend, Amy, had submitted a records request as part of her paralegal studies. Every conversation where I discussed the setup, every strategy session with my lawyer, every desperate plea of innocence was now in Trent's hands. My defender suggested changing our approach, but what was the point? He knew everything. Diane's cousin reported back 3 days later. The hidden compartment showed clear tool marks indicating recent installation, scratches in the metal, fresh drill shavings, but the police hadn't photographed those details during their initial search. Worse, multiple investigators had contaminated the scene, making any evidence legally questionable. Still, it was something. Proof that the compartment wasn't factory installed, that someone had modified my car. Family court issued new orders that felt like punishment disguised as procedure. Before any visitation could resume, I had to complete parenting classes and substance counseling. The catch? Jail only offered these programs to sentenced inmates, not pre-trial detainees. I was trapped in a bureaucratic nightmare, unable to meet requirements that were impossible to fulfill for my current position. The next blow came through Melissa, who risked her marriage to visit again. Trent had accessed Emma's college fund as her temporary guardian. $5,000 withdrawn for trauma counseling with someone who turned out to be Amy's friend. A self-proclaimed life coach with no actual credentials. Legal? Yes. Devastating? Absolutely. I'd saved that money since Emma was born. $20 here, $50 there, building her future one deposit at a time. Local news ran a feel-good segment about recovery and redemption. There was Trent at a charity 5K, wearing a custom shirt with my children's faces and running for their future printed across the back. The reporter praised his dedication to breaking generational cycles of addiction. I watched from the dayroom television as my brother crossed the finish line, Emma and Jake cheering him on. Other inmates changed the channel, but the damage was done. My latest public defender, the third one, found a discrepancy in the prosecutor's case. The substance weight didn't match trafficking charges. It was barely over possession limits. She suggested pleading down to simple possession, time served, probation, but any substance conviction meant losing my nursing license permanently. It meant Trent keeping custody. It meant admitting to something I didn't do. Mandatory group therapy became another form of torture, sitting in a circle with actual addicts, listening to their stories while maintaining my innocence. The counselor took notes every time I spoke, writing denial and lack of accountability in a file that would follow me through the system. Truth sounded exactly like lies in that room. Every protest of innocence was just another symptom of addiction. Trent brought the children for what he called a closure visit. Emma wore clothes I didn't recognize, designer labels I'd never buy. Both children called Amy Miss Amy with genuine affection. She braided Emma's hair in a style I'd tried and failed to master. Jake showed me his new baseball glove, expensive leather that smelled like privilege. They talked about their new routines, Amy's cooking, trips to places I'd always promised but could never afford. My children were becoming strangers, and Trent made sure I saw every painful detail. My father visited alone the following week. He looked broken, aged beyond his years. He admitted knowing Trent was using again, found needles in the noticed money missing from his wallet. But at least Trent was functional, he reasoned. At least the kids had stability. He begged me to take a plea deal, to stop fighting what everyone already believed. The man who'd punched walls in my defense now wanted me to surrender. Even my commissary account became a battlefield. Funds deposited by Melissa mysteriously disappeared. An investigation revealed Trent had listed himself as an approved visitor and family member, granting him access to my account. He drained it systematically, leaving me unable to buy basic hygiene products. The jail's response was a shrug. Family members had those rights. The foreclosure notice arrived like a final insult. Local news covered the auction of my house. Interviewing Trent about his efforts to save the family home despite his sister's choices, he stood on my front lawn looking appropriately sorrowful, explaining how addiction destroyed families. Behind him, I could see my rose bushes dying from neglect. Brenda, my former colleague, risked her job to visit with disturbing news. The hospital had hired Trent for night custodial work. He now had access to medical records, controlled substance disposal areas, and the same halls where I'd built my career. She'd caught him asking questions about ketamine disposal procedures, anesthesia cart codes. The implications terrified us both. Diane revealed she'd recorded Trent buying from her dealer 6 weeks before my arrest. The video was clear. His face, his voice, the transaction. But it also showed Diane dealing, making it legally inadmissible. Evidence that could free me would imprison her. She offered it anyway, understanding what it might cost her. I couldn't accept that sacrifice. A private investigator hired by Melissa's husband uncovered something significant. Trent had been using my nursing license number to call in prescriptions. The DEA database showed suspicious patterns, controlled substances prescribed to patients I'd never treated, identity theft on top of everything else, but reporting it meant opening a federal investigation that could take years. My uncle finally visited alone after hours. He looked older, shoulders bent with shame. He'd suspected Trent from the beginning but couldn't investigate family. Now he offered to pay for a private attorney if I agreed to leave town after acquittal. The good apple of the family tree would need to disappear to preserve what remained of our reputation. I agreed. What choice did I have? Emma's teacher contacted CPS with concerns that made my heart race. My daughter had drawn pictures during art class, crude images of Uncle Trent's secret box in Mommy's car. But the investigator dismissed them as trauma responses, children processing difficult emotions through art, truth from the mouth of babes, ignored by adults who thought they knew better. The private attorney my uncle hired brought hope and devastating reality in equal measure. Trent's public sympathy campaign had contaminated the jury pool. Everyone knew the story of the heroic recovering addict saving his sister's children. She suggested requesting a bench trial with a judge who had discretion on mandatory minimums. It meant putting my fate in one person's hands instead of 12. I crossed ethical lines I never thought I would. During literacy program, I befriended the coordinator whose daughter was in Emma's class. Technically, this violated the no-contact order, but I was desperate for information about my children. Through her, I learned Emma had stopped singing entirely. No more tomorrow? No more anything. The music had died with her mother's arrest. During transport for attorney meetings, I recognized the bailiff. Marcus Chen had been Trent's dealer in high school, now 10 years clean and working courthouse security. He pulled me aside in the holding area, whispering that Trent had tried to buy from him last month. Trent knew his history, knew his triggers, tried to exploit them. Marcus couldn't testify. It would cost him his job, but he wanted me to know the truth. The attorney subpoenaed pharmacy records that painted a damning picture. Trent had filled prescriptions using my DEA number the week before my arrest, establishing a paper trail of identity theft. But the prosecutor argued this was separate from the substance charges, relevant to motive but not proof of planting evidence. The system compartmentalized crimes like it compartmentalized lives. Amy's pregnancy announcement during family court proceedings felt like a calculated blow. She stood before the judge, hand on her still flat stomach, talking about providing a stable two-parent home for all the children. Trent wiped away tears that might have been genuine. The judge extended temporary custody, moved by the touching display of family planning. I missed Emma's 7th birthday from my jail cell. Trent live-streamed the party at Chuck E. Cheese, a place I'd never been able to afford. Emma blew out candles without looking at the camera, her face a mask of forced happiness. The other parents smiled and clapped, probably relieved the substance dealer mother wasn't there to ruin the celebration. Jake sat in the corner, arms crossed, refusing to participate. The work release program offered cruel hope. I could leave jail to clean offices at night, earning money for legal fees. The location? My former hospital. The universe's sick joke meant I'd mop floors in the pediatric ward where I'd once saved lives, scrubbing toilets in the break room where colleagues had thrown me a baby shower for Jake. My supervisor was a parent from Emma's school who treated me like something scraped off her shoe. She assigned me the worst tasks, made me clean the same areas repeatedly, always finding fault. One night, she forced me to clean the trauma bay where I'd once let a code that saved a child's life. The plaque on the wall still thanked the nursing team. My name had been covered with tape. Brenda slipped me notes during my shifts, risking everything to keep me informed. Trent had been asking about controlled substance disposal, particularly ketamine and fentanyl. He'd befriended nurses on the night shift, using his recovery story to gain sympathy and access. The pattern was clear. He was escalating beyond pills, planning something bigger. The choice that haunted me came on a Thursday night. During my shift, I discovered Trent in a restricted area, pocketing expired medications from the disposal bin. Security cameras would have caught him, but reporting it meant violating my work release terms, protecting future victims, or helping my children, an impossible decision. I walked away hating myself with each step. Jake's counselor filed a report that should have changed everything. My son insisted repeatedly that Uncle Trent had put something in Mommy's car, providing consistent details about timing and location. But Trent produced a therapist note from Amy's life coach friend stating Jake was experiencing false memories due to trauma. A 9-year-old's truth buried under professional-sounding lies. My substance test came back positive for a substance I'd never heard of. The levels were consistent with recent ingestion, not long-term use. Diane figured it out first. Trent had connections in the jail kitchen through Amy's network. He'd been dosing my food, ensuring I'd fail any test, providing more evidence of my addiction. Even in jail, I wasn't safe from his reach. The private investigator uncovered Trent's practice run. His college roommate expelled for substances Trent planted now lived under a bridge in Portland. Unreachable, unverifiable, but part of a clear pattern. This wasn't his first frame job, just his most elaborate. But patterns weren't proof, and the roommate couldn't testify from wherever addiction had taken him. The judge accelerated my trial date, citing public interest and children's welfare. 2 weeks to prepare instead of 2 months. My attorney scrambled to organize witnesses, gather evidence, build a defense against charges that shouldn't exist. The speed that usually helped defendants now worked against me. Trent had planned for this too. His real goal surfaced during a meeting with my attorney. Hidden in family court documents was a petition for adoption. If I remained incarcerated for 1 year, abandonment laws kicked in. Trent wasn't just stealing temporary custody. He planned to erase me as their mother entirely. The papers were already drawn up waiting for time to pass. The twisted logic emerged through his blog posts. Trent genuinely believed he was saving my children from addict genes, protecting them from ending up like him or like me in his distorted view. He'd convinced himself that destroying me was an act of love, breaking the cycle by breaking me. The scariest part? His tears during court appearances were real. I made a desperate decision that violated every ethical line I had left. Through Diane's connections, we arranged to search Trent's apartment during Emma's school recital. Her crew found his stash, not just pills, but harder substances, enough to send him away for years, but we couldn't report it without implicating ourselves in breaking and entering. Evidence that could save me would destroy my alibi for the apartment search. I had to miss my video call with the children. Emma waited by the computer for 2 hours according to the guard who finally disconnected the unused session. She'd prepared a song to sing for me, not tomorrow, something new from school. I'd traded possible evidence for definite heartbreak. The search revealed receipts for the compartment installation in my car. The shop owner's name was familiar, Trent's old dealer, someone who'd do anything for the right price. But he wouldn't testify without immunity, and the prosecutor wasn't interested in deals that complicated their simple case. Substance dealer mother was an easier story than elaborate frame job. Character witnesses became a battlefield of their own. 3 hospital colleagues agreed to testify about my professional reputation, my dedication, my complete lack of substance history. But the 4th backed out after Trent implied he knew about her past prescription discrepancy, something she'd confided only to me during a vulnerable moment. He'd weaponized every trust I'd ever built. The judge ordered hair follicle tests for all parties in the custody case. The results confirmed what I'd always known. I showed no signs of long-term substance use. But the judge noted that single use was still illegal, that good people sometimes made bad choices. Legal innocence and actual innocence were different things, and I was learning the distinction painfully. My attorney called in a favor from a DEA contact who confirmed the prescription fraud pattern matched Trent's timeline perfectly, but testifying would open a federal investigation that could take years during which my children would grow up without me. Help that couldn't help. Truth that couldn't be spoken. The system's cruel mathematics. Off the record, the DEA contact revealed something chilling. Trent's fraudulent prescriptions had gone to elderly hospice patients who died before anyone noticed. He'd been using dead people's identities for months, technically making him a serial killer of convenience, but proving it required resources I didn't have, connections I couldn't make from jail. Emma broke during her forensic interview, blurting out that Uncle Trent had shown her the box in Mommy's car before the play. For a moment, truth shone through. Then immediately, she recanted, saying she made it up for attention. The investigator noted both statements but emphasized the recantation. Even my daughter's honesty had been twisted into lies. The compartment installer came forward after his own arrest on unrelated charges. He admitted Trent paid cash for the installation a week before my arrest, providing receipts and detailed testimony. But his cooperation came at a price. He had to testify about all his illegal modifications, implicating dozens of other clients who now wanted me dead for exposing their secrets. I made the hardest decision of my life during a strategy meeting with my attorney. I agreed to testify about finding Trent stealing from the hospital, knowing it violated my work release terms. The truth had become more important than strategy. If I was going down, I'd go down fighting, giving the jury every piece of truth I could. Trent visited the jail the night before trial, carrying a letter of forgiveness and power of attorney papers. He promised to drop the adoption pursuit if I took a plea deal. 18 months, out in 12 with good behavior. His hand shook as he pushed the papers through the slot. The security footage clearly showed his dilated pupils, the tremor in his fingers. He was using heavily again, but no one cared about the obvious signs. I looked him in the eye and spoke clearly for the cameras. I would rather lose my children forever as an innocent woman than keep them through a lie. His face crumpled, not with victory but with genuine confusion. He'd never imagined I wouldn't break, wouldn't fold, wouldn't take the easy path that confirmed his narrative. Trial began with the prosecutor painting me as a nurse who'd used medical knowledge for substance dealing. Trent sat directly behind the prosecutor's table, wearing a suit I recognized from my father's closet, playing the victim advocate to perfection. The gallery split down the middle. My supporters on the left, Trent's army of recovery advocates, and concerned parents on the right. Both of us showed our battle scars. I'd lost 30 pounds, my hair showing gray I'd never noticed before. Trent had gained weight, developed a tremor he tried to hide by clasping his hands. We were destroying each other in slow motion, and everyone watched like it was entertainment. The installer took a stand and testified that Trent had specifically requested an undetectable compartment for storing girlfriend's birthday surprise. The lie was so obvious that several jury members shifted uncomfortably, but obvious lies weren't proof beyond reasonable doubt. Then came the bailiff I'd recognized, Marcus Chen. He broke courtroom protocol, standing up in the gallery to speak without being called. He couldn't stay silent anymore, he said. 10 years clean, and Trent had tried to drag him back down. The judge threatened contempt, but Marcus continued. Trent knew every dealer in town, every weakness, every trigger. He was a predator dressed as prey. The judge ordered hair follicle tests for everyone involved in the family court matter, including Trent. His panic was visible, sweating, fidgeting, suddenly needing bathroom breaks. The test would show everything, and he knew it, but the criminal trial would be over before those results came back. Hospital security footage was authenticated and entered into evidence. It showed Trent entering restricted areas during my shifts, creating opportunity for the prescription theft. Circumstantial but compelling, the prosecutor admitted. Patterns emerged like a picture from scattered pixels. Access, opportunity, motive, method. Everything built to Trent's testimony. Access, opportunity, motive, method. Everything built to Trent's testimony. He took the stand and broke down completely, admitting to the prescription theft but swearing he'd never planted substances. His tears seemed genuine as he talked about trying to save me from myself, protecting the children from our family curse. He was an addict but not a monster, he insisted. Even I almost believed him. During jury deliberation, the prosecutor offered one final deal. Drop all charges if I agreed to supervised visitation only. No admission of guilt but acceptance of consequences. My attorney advised taking it. Juries were unpredictable and we'd presented reasonable doubt but not certainty. I refused. My children deserved a mother who fought for truth until the end. Either I'd walk out vindicated or go to prison knowing I'd never compromised. The jury returned after 2 hours of deliberation. The verdict split like my life had split. Not guilty on trafficking. The evidence was too thin. The compartment too suspicious. But guilty on possession because the substances were in my car and constructive possession was still possession. Time served plus 2 years probation. A partial victory that felt like defeat. Family court moved immediately. Trent's custody was revoked based on his failed substance test and admitted prescription theft. But the children went to my parents, not to me. The judge cited my criminal conviction, my need to rebuild, the children's need for stability. No one won clean. I moved in with Melissa, whose husband had left her for supporting me. We rebuilt together, two women whose loyalty to truth had cost them everything. My nursing license was suspended pending review, a process that would take years. I found work as a medical clerk, filing papers where I'd once saved lives. Supervised Sunday visits became my lifeline. Emma spoke again but flinched at sirens. Jake refused to visit Trent at all, carrying anger like armor. My mother, now in a wheelchair from her stroke, still defended Trent from her assisted living facility. The family tree we'd all been so proud of was nothing but broken branches. 6 months later, I sat in another courtroom for the final custody hearing. Trent was back in rehab, court-ordered this time. His girlfriend Amy had left him when the baby tested positive for substances at birth. The family court judge reviewed everything. My compliance, my job stability, my clean substance tests, my completed parenting classes, joint custody with my parents, supervised transitions, substance testing for all parties. Emma's college fund was restored by court order. It wasn't the life I'd built before, but it was something. Trent would get supervised visitation when he completed treatment. Again, I drove past my foreclosed house every day on the way to work. New family, new rose bushes, new life inside those walls. Sometimes I parked across the street remembering birthday parties and bedtime stories, Christmas mornings and homework battles. The GPS still called it home. Emma asked me once if I hated Uncle Trent. I told her the truth. I hated what he did but couldn't hate him. He was sick in ways that medicine couldn't fix, broken in places that love couldn't reach. We were all just trying to survive our family curse in different ways. The last time I saw him was at the courthouse, signing papers to garnish his wages for child support. He looked smaller, deflated, like a balloon slowly losing air. He asked if I thought he'd ever get better. I didn't have an answer. Some cycles break you before you break them. But every Sunday, I picked up my children for our allotted hours. We went to parks, museums, anywhere that didn't remind us of before. Emma started singing again. Not tomorrow, but new songs. Happier ones. Jake joined Little League with a used glove that smelled like hope instead of privilege.